Okay, councillors, we have gone live. So welcome to our first meeting of 2021. It's a little bit more of the same, unfortunately, with the lockdown. We appreciate things are difficult for many of our residents at the start of this new year, but I will wish you a belated Happy New Year nonetheless. And thank all those involved in the vaccine rollout for the sterling work they're doing, because that is really a way out of this crisis that we're in at the moment. So thank you for that. I don't see any councillors absent at the moment, so I don't believe there's any apologies for absence. So it's a full house. Any declarations of interest? Councillor Taylor?
Yeah, on the checks and payments, there's a check for the Christmas Light Committee, and I'm a committee member.
Okay, thank you. Right, Councillor Ellis?
Exactly the same as Tyler. I'm on the Christmas Lights Committee, so that's the payment of the so what do you call it? The BACS payments.
Yes, okay. Thank you, and we're noted for that. Okay. So I'll just make a note of both of those. Right. Any pecuniary interests? Councillor Taylor?
The judicial review, the update.
Thank you. Any other councillors? No? Okay. We'll go on to public participation. I did have someone in the waiting room. Guess what? The curse of Zoom continues, and they have disappeared. So, knowing that might be the case, oh, sorry, no, they are coming back on. Let me try and admit. So it'd be nice to have a live question for the evening, won't it? So we have Dr. Barry Perry. If you can hear us, Dr. Perry, you're very welcome to ask the councillor question.
Hear me?
I can hear you, yes.
Okay, I sent in an email to you asking whether there was any information on where COVID vaccinations will be taking place in the Attleborough constituency.
Can't hear him very well.
Just to reiterate, yes, there was a question sent in from Dr. Perry, and it was, can we get some information as a town council to where the vaccinations within the town are going to take place? You may be aware, and you may have seen on some social media streams, that there are now some vaccination centres, and there's one that was mentioned at Poringland and other places. I can confirm that we've been in communication with Breckland Council on locating a site within Attleborough for vaccinations. It will be the AstraZeneca vaccination, as it doesn't require the very low temperatures that the Pfizer one does. And that should be finalised very shortly. We're hoping within the next few days from the conversation I had. As soon as we've got that information, we will put it on social media and on the newsletter and publicise that information for residents. It is exciting news in light of everything that's been happening. So yes, a good question, Dr. Perry. Do you have any other questions?
No, thank you. Just that it seemed to be crazy to have to go all the way to Poringland when there were other sites closer at hand, but even the best solution would be Attleborough, because the flu injection clinics that were held in the autumn worked brilliantly.
They do. The flu jab clinics work absolutely brilliantly, and we are trying to do something along those lines, utilise what's already working. So it may be along those lines. However, it's something that we're only being given advice on at the moment, rather than actually actively participating in ourselves. But we have made a number of suggestions on how this might be done locally, as they've sought local advice, and we will be chasing that up for you.
Great.
Fantastic.
Thank you.
Thank you. Right. Well, that worked. That's a positive. That's the first. Well done. Sorry, Councillor Grave, did I see your hand up there?
Yeah, on the debate of potential sites, would the old library building not be appropriate to use for something like that, as it stood empty?
We've given sufficient suggestions already. I don't really want to start the process again. That might have been a good
Okay,
idea
no worries,
as well.
no worries.
No, that's fine. I think they're well onto it now, so I think they're approaching sites to get this done. So
Good.
rather than slow it down, I'll let them pursue this course. Okay. Well, yes, thank you. There are a number of other questions as well. I have this question in relation to COVID. It seems appropriate to follow this up from a resident received shortly before the meeting this evening. I'll just read it out to you. I witnessed a very upsetting situation for the second time recently. As the shop is in our town, I wanted to bring it to your attention. Shopkeepers demanding for customers to wear lanyards to say they are exempt from wearing masks in their shop, and when not provided, they are customers asked to be removed from the shop. One customer rightly said she doesn't need to wear a lanyard to show her disability, but was still asked to leave the shop. I have double checked on this with the doctor, who said you don't need to prove this. In this day and age, I think it's difficult and degrading that I witnessed this going on, not just once, but twice. Could you please look into this to stop this discrimination? Thank you. This is a difficult one, if I'm absolutely honest. I get where the law stands on this. There is a recommendation, if where possible, you can wear a lanyard so it can be easily identified. But I also recognise that that's a recommendation and it isn't the law as well. I also recognise as a town council, we don't have any rights to instruct shops as well. However, we can report things to Brecon Council, who have a little bit more authority than ourselves on this matter. This is difficult in a couple of regards. One is we have a very anxious, anxious people within the community who go into shops and see others without a lanyard and without a mask and rightfully feel exposed, as do the people working within the shop. And we also want to protect against discrimination for those who have conditions that prevent them from wearing face masks. It's a very delicate balancing act, this. I don't know whether any other councillor wants to mention or make a comment on this.
I just think people shouldn't have to advertise that they have a health condition. Do you know what I mean? There is there's a dignity issue involved there.
It is. It's a very difficult one. As I said, I can see this from both sides. As a town council, all we can do is send this report into Brecon Council. Councillor Taylor.
Yeah, I'd also just maybe suggest that we, as a town council, to show that we're actually actively working on what this resident said as well, just promote the correct legislation and what the guidelines are on, wearing a face mask and those medical exemptions on our webpage and on social media, which I'm sure at some point we've probably already done, but just maybe a refresher in the hope that if you promote it on social media, some of those local shopkeepers will see it and maybe think twice about how they approach those situations going forward. We can't do anything to enforce it, but maybe just give that nudge and give that awareness.
Thank you very much. That's a good suggestion and one that is noted for action. Did I see another hand up? Was that Vera? Did I see Councillor Dale's hand up? No? There we go.
Oscar's got his hand up.
Done it? No, I haven't.
You've done it.
That's
You've done
lovely.
it.
I've done it. So I'm a new contraption and it's driving me up the wall. I do understand some people do not want to wear face masks and some can't wear face masks for various reasons. But I do feel in the present climate, as many people as possible should be wearing them. And not because you don't want to. If you have a genuine reason, then I accept that. But I do think a lot of people maybe use it as an excuse. And I think the more people that wear face masks in the shops, anywhere, is going to help reduce the amount of cross-contamination. And I think it's important that people who can wear them actually wear them.
Thank you, Vera. And that's where the discretion is hard, isn't it, on this? Councillor Busk.
I believe too that there are those who don't believe there is a virus, who feel they are at liberty to do what they like. A suggestion is that a person hasn't got a mask, hasn't got a lanyard. There's a quiet conversation with that person regarding their reasons. And if it's very clear that they don't believe in the virus and things like that, the shop owner has a right as to who comes in to his shop or doesn't come in. I believe there's a principle that could be used here without upsetting anyone.
Thank you for that suggestion. Okay, so we will do a little bit more advertising, and we will forward this on to Brecon Council as well as part of our duty of care with this. So thank you for that. I hope that's addressed a very difficult situation. Thank you. We have a number of questions this evening on the same subject. And I feel it appropriate and in public interest to raise this, and there were quite a lot on this. This one I will read out first. Just making sure I've got the right one, and I haven't. I've got the wrong one in front of me.
Okay.
Sorry about that. Get my paperwork in the right order. Is it true that Mr. Crouch's only intention behind attending this evening's meeting is to block his seat from becoming vacant? I have had a number of the same vein of this. I'm going to give Councillor Crouch an opportunity to respond if he so wishes to answer this.
The reason that I haven't attended previous meetings is because they clash with my treatment.
Okay.
And that is all I'm saying on it.
Thank you, Tony. Right. There are a number of questions on this, and I feel that, you know, another part of this question that needs to be asked as well is with regards to participation in council duties during this period of now nearly 6 months. And in essence, the question is, and I think I'm going to go to the other question on this one. He was elected to represent the community and for the last 6 months has failed to do so. Could he please explain why he has not participated in council duties outside of meetings as well as within meetings during this period?
I'll just give you the reply.
Okay. Councillor Dale?
I think this is very personal. Councillor Crouch has said he's having treatment. And I think at this particular moment in time, this isn't the place to discuss it. I think you need to discuss it with Councillor Crouch, maybe privately, but I don't think it should be discussed in an open meeting. I'm sorry.
Thank you very much. Councillor Busk?
I have been in correspondence with Councillor Crouch. I'm aware that we are looking at the tip of the iceberg in relationship to the struggles he has with his health. But as far as I'm aware, Councillor Crouch's heart is with the council as much as he is able to do at the moment. But I fully endorse that there should be a private inquiry relating to this matter, and I'm embarrassed that this has come into the public arena as if he's some kind of an ogre threatening and causing trouble to the council.
I don't believe that last part was implied, and these questions would come out in public discourse in a normal meeting anyway, and I was, because of a number of them, trying to give Tony an opportunity to respond publicly. Councillor Taylor?
I am going to disagree with some of my colleagues. Might make me unpopular, but so be it. I find it far too coincidental, and this isn't an allegation or an accusation, that you can miss every meeting for a series of 6 months, and then coincidentally on that meeting where you would be automatically disqualified from holding your position to then conveniently be able to attend. That in my eyes just seems absurd. I find it hard to believe that. I'm not saying there isn't a health condition. I'm not saying it's not a private matter. What I'm saying is this is the forum to discuss it, because the public that we are sitting in front of now on this meeting are the ones who we all as councillors are accountable to. And if a councillor is not going to represent their constituents in any format, so much as an email, a 5-minute email for a period of 6 months, then members of the public have the right to know exactly why. So I do agree that this is actually the perfect place for this discussion.
Thank you, Councillor Taylor.
I want to reply to that.
Councillor Crouch, you're well within your rights to do so.
My health condition is private. It's got absolutely sod all to do with you, Councillor Taylor. I've had enough of the aggro.
Councillor Crouch,
I'm finished yet. Let me finish.
I have
had enough of insinuations about me.
Right, I've just put Councillor Crouch on mute because it is abusive language. I am in well within right as chair of the meeting to do so. We are under a different administration at this point. We will not continue or return to the way things were before. I do not mind an appropriate response, Councillor Crouch, but I will not tolerate that type of behaviour or language in my meetings. So I'll give you another chance to do so.
As I said, my health condition is my health condition. It is private. I'm not willing to discuss it with any town councillor at all. I have been working behind the scenes for residents of this town. But when I have hospital appointments that coincide with council meetings, I cannot be in 2 places at one time. And that is it. I'm not saying another word on it.
You don't have to, and you're well within your rights to have made that comment. Thank you very much for readdressing that comment. I don't want to turn this back into the drama of previous meetings, please. We are moved on so much as a council. I think those who wanted to make a point have made a point. I'll give you one last opportunity to do so and recognise the time for the public debate on this area is closed or closing, and we have a second opportunity to raise any unanswered questions, which I have a few, at our second part of the meeting towards the end. Councillor Grave, I'll give you a chance to make a comment, and then we will move on.
Can I just ask, without really going into any personal detail, for the sake of the residents that we represent, Councillor Crouch, could you maybe tell the public what you have been doing behind the scenes? Is that appropriate to ask?
Oh, they're nasty. Nasty.
I don't think Councillor Crouch is going to respond to that, so we will move on with the rest of the meeting. Okay, Thank you for your participation. Now, I think it's important as councillors we get a chance to respond to the public participation as much as possible on this as well. And that was a difficult matter, I appreciate. Right, 5A, minutes of a town council meeting on the 7th of December 2020. Minutes for acceptance and approval. Does anyone want to make any comments on these?
Yeah, I want to come in on that one. I put my apologies in for that meeting. Why wasn't I accepted?
It is the prerogative of the council to either accept or reject apologies at their sole discretion, depending on the explanation given. That was chosen not to be accepted on that. That is a fair reflection of the minutes. We are looking at resolution of the minutes only at this point. Councillor Taylor?
I'll propose their acceptance.
Do we have a seconder for their acceptance? Councillor Grave, I saw your hand go up first. And if we could have a show of hands for those to approve the minutes of that meeting, please. That is everyone except Tony. I presume you're not participating as you were not part of the meeting. Is that correct?
Correct.
Thank you. So it's an abstention from Tony for that reason. Okay. The next one of minutes, 5B, sorry, I should have picked up on this in the minutes. It is not for resolution at this meeting. It is actually for resolution at the next personnel committee. So whilst you have that information to hand, it is for the personnel committee to resolve this at the next meeting. I apologise for my oversight in not picking up that prior in the agenda. So for information only, I'm afraid at this point, the personnel committee will cover that in the next meeting. Okay, so we will go on to 6A, planning matters. There are a couple of items on there that have already been responded to. So this is for ratification of previous responses. Are there any comments? No. Do we have a proposal for their acceptance? Councillor Westby and Councillor Montague as a seconder, and a show of hands for approval, please. That is everyone with the exception of Councillor Crouch. Is it an abstention or an objection?
Abstention.
Thank you. On to financial matters, 7. The first one is to authorise payments. We've already had 2 declared interests in this on the Christmas lights. I've been on the committee for that. So excluded from this. However, if you wish to make comment on this, you're welcome to do so. Councillor Roper.
Sorry, I attended a conference, just like a couple of hour conference, and I think that's on the expenses list as well. Am I meant to declare an interest in that?
Technically, I think for safety, yes, if we can add that to the interest declared, seeing as we've done that before. No, that's fine. That's wholly appropriate, and I'd rather you say it now than after the vote. Makes that's it. Okay. Any other comments? No. Okay. Can I propose that they be accepted and ask for a second? Councillor Bulmer to second it, and a show of hands from those who are able to for approval. Okay, that is everyone who is able to. That didn't declare an interest in approval for this. 7B.
Sorry,
Debits.
Councillor
Yes.
Leslie, I put my hand up. I wasn't supposed to. I got lost.
Sorry, sorry. With the exclusion of Councillor Taylor. Yes, you'd already noted that. I'll let you off. Okay, 7B, direct debits. Any comments, questions, queries? No. If anyone would like to propose those. Councillor Loads propose and Councillor Cousins second. Can we have a show of hands for that, please? That is everyone other than Councillor Busk. I didn't see whether you approved the direct debits or
I'm
not.
sorry, yes.
Yes, you did. Okay, so that is unanimous approval for the direct debits. To receive income, there's one line on it, 7C. I don't suppose there's many questions, so would anybody like to propose that one? Councillor Bormer with Councillor Montague seconding that, and a show of hands for approval, please. That is unanimous. Thank you. 7D, this is for information, petty cash. If anybody has any queries or questions, they're welcome to raise them. Nope. So we will move on. Seems like I'm racing you through this. I'm trying not to. On to 7E, income and expenditure report for November. Do we have any questions in regards to this report? No. Okay. Let's see if we can move on then. Let's see where we're on the time. Great. We are 12 minutes ahead of my schedule. So well done, guys. Okay. Item 8 is a Precept request for 2021. Myself and the Deputy Mayor, Beverley Bulmer, put together a letter for councillors making a recommendation that we do not increase the Precept for 2021 to 2022. I know there's been a couple of opinions expressed over emails prior to the meeting on this and a couple of answers on this. This is an opportunity for us to discuss this. So I hand over to anybody who wants to make a comment. Councillor Tyra.
Thank you, Councillor Leslie. I mean, I'll just reiterate what I put in my email, and I think it's important for the members of the public to hear this as well. But we're not in a situation to really fully get to grips with our budget at all at this stage because of the situation we're in, and item 13 particularly. I think it's the right course of action looking at the national picture and the suffering that everyone's going through, businesses and what have you, that we work within our means, we review what we're currently doing, we're looking at our existing budgets, and certainly to ask for any kind of increase is just morally and I think financially wrong as well. So what's suggested I fully endorse, and along with that, in parallel of looking at the current working practices of the council to see if we can make more efficiencies and savings, but that is against the backdrop of a big unknown of how much the council is having to pay for legal advice that was created by decisions of the council last year. So I fully support this freeze, but I'd like to see that in parallel with a root branch review of the workings of the council and look for efficiencies and savings where possible. But sorry, bearing in mind as well, we got the challenge of the AMP where we do want to reinvigorate the town and support businesses. So we've got to be really, imaginative working with Breckland on how we work finances in the future.
I couldn't agree more. And there is already commenced a root and branch review of our financial operations. One of the questions tonight that we're talking about will also cover this point a little bit on the financial reviews that's ongoing. And I know that Councillor Westby, a little later in the year, is going to be looking at our operations in a finite detail to help us make even more savings. There are a number of savings, I must say, that have been recommended from members of staff already. the cooperation that we're seeing from the staff members who are working with us on this is being very productive. In particular, we are working closer with the groundsman, and Barry, as our head groundsman, has got a number of suggestions as well. And I need to note that because we do appreciate the staff being cooperative and productive in recognising, even within their own working element, how we can make the best use of public money. So get the best bang for buck, value for money, whichever way you want to say. We are really trying to do this, and there are a number of already identified areas where we can make savings. So we will be pursuing this as we go forward. So yes, this review will happen, and we do hope to get a more detailed budget done, certainly by Easter, to help answer your question on this. Any other comments? Councillor Busk.
Any organisation needs to have a contingency fund so that when emergencies happen, one can draw on this. I believe this needs to be built in to the budget, and also possibly we're going to have real increases in costs nationally in the next few months, and I see no reason why one cannot take account to the to those real increases that are happening and are likely to happen, so that there isn't a strain on our resources. Will this happen?
Thank you for that. We do have a contingency in place as a town council, which we will draw upon in some of these circumstances, no doubt. We are in the middle of a crisis, and that's when we draw on these contingencies rather than bolster our reserves, I feel, and particularly asking the public in this time. I recognise that this is a real world reduction in Precept, but that is exactly where I feel we need to support, and we do have some innovative ideas on how we can make savings as council. We have got some good ideas on how we can cut the cloth to meat. So yes, on that. I saw Councillor Lode's hand up, and I saw another as well, but we'll go to Councillor Lode's first.
You've covered part of what I was going to say. I have sympathy with those who want to see a budget set out, because it's the starting point really for financial management. But I think a bigger argument is that in the current economic climate, I would want to feel I had a good reason to ask people for more money just at the moment. I think if it's, you know, all the weight is on the side of not increasing our Precept.
Thank you. Did I see another hand go up by another councillor? Councillor Taylor.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that I support the decision to not raise the Precept in response to Councillor Busk's concerns about the drain on resources. I think probably the biggest drain on resources for the council this year has been a decision that he was one of 8 to make, and that is extremely unfortunate. But last year we put up the Precept by 10.9%, and as per like actions go, there hasn't really been any that have benefited the town from us taking that extra 10.9% last year. And with that in mind, I think there's absolutely no reason that we could justify to our residents putting that Precept up again a second year in a row.
Thank you. I think our residents need to see that we will manage our finances better than we have done previously before they will entertain us increasing the Precept and having the confidence for us to spend the money wisely. We need to win that trust back, and it is our hope this year that we do. Are there any other comments before we make a proposal? Councillor Westby.
Just to say that I wholeheartedly agree that we shouldn't raise the Precept.
Thank you. Seeing as this is a proposal from myself and our Deputy Mayor Beverley Bulmer, I feel it's appropriate that I propose it, and Beverly, if you're in agreement to second this, seeing as our letter that we put to councillors. So on the proposal that we do not increase a precept for the year 2021 to 22, as proposed by myself and the Deputy Mayor, if I could see a show of hands for those in agreement. Okay, do we have any opposed to this? And any abstentions? There are 2 abstentions that I've seen. Tell me if I've got it wrong, but the 2 I've seen are Councillor Montague and Councillor Crouch. Were there any others? As far as I saw, everybody else voted in favour of this. So the precept for the next financial year will not be increased from its present level. Thank you very much, and I appreciate councillors' support on this very sensitive matter. We will now go into section 9, item 9, under correspondence. 9A. I'll summarise the letter, but it is basically to do with the decoy common and the access gates to them, which are particularly difficult when it's been flooding. And we have had some flooding lately with the amount of rain, although it's not as bad as Thetford or other places in Bidley. Thetford hasn't fared so bad. So Councillor Day asked us, you will get this.
I will master it one day. I will master it one day. This actually isn't ours. We rent it. It belongs to the church. So whatever we do down there, I'm sure the Charities Commission won't object, the Church Commission won't object, but whatever we do will have to be run by them first, because it is a rented. We pay a rate for it, a standard amount each year.
Thank you very much. Do you know that that's very useful information and sound advice, Councillor Dale. Thank you very much for that. You may be aware that we have sought some quotations, and we have got to clarify those quotations in line with questions on them before we do this decision. But I just wanted to gauge councillors' opinion on this before we proceed.
And also, it says 3 fields. Well, it used to be 2 fields, and the third field was private property. But whether that's, I haven't been down there for a little while, but we had 2 fields, and originally, if you go back right at the very beginning, originally the first field they hoped that guides and scouts could camp in it, and the second field was for dog walkers. But that's all gone by the board now. But I didn't realise we had a 3rd field that used to belong to a farming family.
To be fair, I've only been there a couple of times, and I couldn't distinguish which field we're talking about. So if anybody's got a little bit more enlightenment and understanding on that, I'd appreciate something.
I would have gone down, but I'm isolating. Otherwise, I would have gone down and had a look before tonight.
Bless you. Yeah. Councillor Bulmer.
Yeah, I think certainly the groundsman Barry would be a very good support to sort of clarify things. I think he's very clear on things there.
Councillor Tyrant.
Just to add, I mean, Councillor Dale's correct. It is owned by the Charity Commission. There was a discussion a couple of years ago whether the Town Council actually take it on as part of the AMP, but it is owned by the Charities Commission. Nevertheless, we rent it, and I think we are responsible for access. And we are at the moment just talking about trying to improve the access to the fields that is used by, members of the community. I've walked our dogs down there. It is a swamp, no doubt about it. But the access could do with improving. So anything we can do to improve that. In terms of who owns what and longer term, I think that's something we can discuss over the coming weeks and months.
I'm happy for the AMP to take this on a little bit, because it's part of the community projects we're looking at. It's also one of the endpoints of the linear park. Remember? Yeah, that's why.
That's part of the strategic plan. Exactly. So
rather than us do something speedily, but then having to retrospectively spend more money correcting a decision we're making at that point, is that something we could add to the AMP so we make a good decision and do our proper due diligence and research on this so that we can improve access, but in the right way to link up with a linear park, etc.
Could I just add before Councillor Dale and others comment? Information behind that, as you know, as part of the AMP, we are setting these subcommittees up, and there is a subcommittee that's been well attended by members of the community looking at the linear park. And I think to show faith and working in collaboration and partnership, I think we owe it to go back to that subcommittee, because we did say the community would take these as projects and let them have their say on this. And as an idea and what I've viewed before, we as councillors make a decision that basically overturns everything we've been trying to do with making the AMP community led. So I'll just park that there. So.
Thank you. No, that's the appropriate action to take, I feel. Councillor Taylor.
I did have my hand up.
Sorry, Councillor Dale, we'll come to you afterwards.
Okay.
Yeah, 2 points. Firstly, it might be worth asking the ground staff to take a look at the ditches. I think often that is part of the cause of the problem, and if we could get that sorted, maybe the conditions down there might just be a little bit better short term. The other thing that I was going to say is, at the end of July, I had a resident raise the access with me then, and I think I brought it up in the following meeting, so that would have probably been the August meeting. And I do believe the resident then contacted you directly, Councillor Leslie. Do you remember about disabled access? So I just think, it is something that's been on the radar for a while now. And although we want to do it right, obviously that was 6 months ago. So
yes, it was.
The sooner the better.
We were looking
really.
at that was a different question. I was under disabled access. And we were looking at a different proposal then. So tying all these things together for better access and disabled access, and looking at the drainage and things, I think get the relevant people together talking about this and get the community involved in the decision here. Yes.
Thank you.
Councillor Dale.
I wasn't being negative, but as it is now land, it's quite polite to ask first. And I think it's a worthwhile project, but we do need to go through the correct procedure and ask. But I'm sure they won't say no, but we do need to do it.
No, absolutely. And I've noted that. And I'm sure that with Councillor Tyra's understanding of that as well, and communication with the church, that will be taken into consideration.
Yeah, I'll contact Matthew and get that on his radar tomorrow.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And it'd be useful to have a little report back so we could move this on, so we don't leave this too much longer as well. Thank you. Any other comments? No? Sorry, Councillor Westby.
Just my professional hat on, I'll go down and have a look and see if there's any quick fix that can be done at a modest cost.
Thank you. We appreciate your expertise, which has already helped us out on other projects as well. Thank you, Councillor Westby. Yes. Okay. Item 9B, the correspondence that a request for funfair at the recreation ground from Tuesday, the 4th of May until Monday the 10th. This is a tricky one. I don't know what to say, councillors, so I'm hoping you know more than I do. Councillor Dale.
I would say, provided COVID restrictions have all been lifted, yes, let's have some fun. It's about time. And they come regularly, they're well known, they run a fairly tight ship, and I would propose that we accept this, as I say, provided COVID restrictions are lifted.
I would second that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, Councillor Loads, you've got your hand up as well.
I do have a couple of contacts with a bit more knowledge on the COVID things than I would profess to have. My understanding is that the public health aspects of the restrictions are likely to continue through the summer. That is the hands, face, space thing. I think any permission we give for anything like this should clearly spell out that if those instructions are still in force, that they should be applied to this kind of thing. You know, that things will have to be I think it makes it unrealistic if you've got to start sanitising everything between each ride. But, you know, if the restrictions are still in place, they're still in place.
Mhm.
I think that's a very wise bit of counsel there. So, gathering the thoughts together of councillors so far, would I right be saying that we would gladly approve this, providing the relevant COVID restrictions are applied at the time of the event?
Absolutely.
Mhm.
So that's the condition of proposal. I will propose that then, and if we could have a second, Barry Cousins, Councillor Cousins, seconded that, and we have a show of hands for approval, please. That is unanimous. Thank you very much. Not quite as hard as I feared. Okay, right. Item number 10 is for other items that are pressing. One of those, and it's appropriate that we get onto this, are the COVID restrictions, which we flagged up there, the national lockdown. It's a forum for councillors really to raise anything that they feel the public should be aware of that would help, or raise any queries or questions that you feel will be in public interest to discuss at this time in relation to the current lockdown. Councillor Grave.
Yeah, I've posted this on social media recently. I'd just like to remind residents that we do have a coronavirus helpline in action at the moment, as we did in the previous lockdowns. And there is no need for people to put themselves at risk. There are plenty of volunteers in this town who can complete simple tasks such as collecting prescriptions and doing shopping runs. There's no need for anyone vulnerable or anyone isolating or anyone at all to put themselves at risk if they don't need to.
Thank you very much, Councillor Gray, for yours and the other councillors that I know here that are doing it, and residents. Sterling work, absolutely marvellous, and I have had personal thanks on your behalf, as it were, for the amount of work that you've done on this. I'll let you do a little plug. If you want to publicly say the contact number, you're very welcome to do so. If I'm putting you to
Yes. I've not actually got it to hand. I'm hoping maybe Councillor Taylor can back me up here.
Councillor Taylor to the rescue.
Yeah, just while I find it, because I don't know it off by heart either. I've never had to ring it because I answer it. So because I answer it, I've never had to ring it. But I will say, and it might come as a bit of a comfort, that actually since the lockdown was announced, since the very next morning, the calls have increased. The next day I hadn't done a shopping trip personally for a couple of weeks, and the next day I done through myself. So already, obviously, it has had that impact where people are calling it. So obviously, it's working. So that's the good news, is that it is being used and it is effective. And if anyone else would like any assistance, here we go. The number is 01953 686 538, and we're happy to help.
Thank you. And I know we've got that posted on our website, the Town Council website as well. Amazing. The amount of people I have had compliment the town because of this, which is really the people like yourself, Taylor, and Lucan, who go and do this work, astonishing. It makes all the difference. We are being supported rather well as well by Breckland Council, so that's good. And they have, Councillor Tristan has also asked that we highlight the latest grants available from Breckland for regenerating local businesses. Please get in touch with Breckland Council to explore those as we support the economy of our local town as well. Councillor Taylor, saw your hand up again.
Yeah, I just wanted to say Ed, bless him, answers the phone one day a week. I didn't want him to get forgotten.
Sorry, I apologise for all that do. Those who get noticed or don't. Thank you very much. Any other comments, questions, highlighted points? Councillor Montague.
Yeah, I'm a little bit disturbed at the Liberals, because when we had the first lockdown, we had a member of their staff or security counting people in and only allowing them in when people came out. Now there seems to be no restriction at all, and you just go straight in. And there seems to be very little control, except easy bottles, to sanitize your hands and that sort of thing. But I do think at times there's far too many in the shop, and I've experienced that myself when I.
Okay, thank you, Keith. And one thing we can do as a council is highlight anything to Breckland, who are the authority on this, who can make representation, which I will now add to the list of things that I make representation on this. So yes, I will act on that, Councillor Montague.
Yeah.
Anything else? I suppose. Sorry, is that someone? This is difficult for our community. It seems we keep on getting kicked while we're down. And with the roadworks and coronavirus over the last year or so, as well as our own efforts to cause issues, I would say that it's been a difficult year, and it's going to be a little while yet before we're out the worst of this. We've been warned today that the next few weeks are going to be the worst yet. I would remind residents, be careful, follow the guidance. This is not something to be trifled with. Please be careful. Under item 10, moving on as well, I neglected, second mistake on the agenda, I apologise for this. I neglected to put in an item specifically for the councillor co-option procedure, which we said we would report back on in the new year. This has been forwarded to councillors separately to the paper pack shortly afterwards, and has been posted on the town website as well. So we have the new co-option procedure, which is really about openness and transparency. Why we are really trying to avoid any accusations of cronyism or favoritism or anything else, and we are trying to get a fair representation of our community within the town council. So if you haven't already, as members of the public, and you have an interest in becoming a councillor, heaven help you first and foremost. Yeah. But if you still would like to be a councillor, the councillor co-option procedure is listed under the the meeting papers, and following this meeting, it will also be listed under the news items, and if we could do that, because I would like this evening to advertise our vacancy in line with the procedure. So it goes on to our social media and website, and it is advertised at the full council meeting, this meeting. And I propose that the vacancy be advertised in line with this co-option procedure, and the deadline be given for this is Friday the 12th of February for applications to be received into the council. Do we have any comments or queries before we have a vote for this? Councillor Taylor.
I just wanted to say how well I thought you'd done with the policy. I think where you say that obviously transparency and openness has been the key, I think you've very much grasped what you were setting out to get. And yeah, I look forward to the process.
Thank you. Councillor Lowe's.
Just a question. Is there any provision for a reserve list? I mean, if there were to be another council vacancy in the next 6 months, would you have to repeat the whole exercise, or would you feel you could take another one off this impending exercise?
That's a really good question that I hadn't thought of before writing the procedure. Thank you, Bill. For that. I think in the effort of being transparent about this, we ought to follow this procedure in every case, but we can invite those that were unsuccessful from previous lists to reapply for this. I don't want it to be a closed process, and I want it to be as engaging with the community as possible, because the more variety, the more balance we can get onto the council, the better we will act. The more representation, the better. Councillor Grave, did you see your hand go up? No? Maybe. Councillor Tyra. Councillor Tyra, we'll go to Councillor Tyra first while you're debating that.
Yeah. I think Councillor Grave is rethinking his question. I was just about to say, we can't really have a reserve list because that could be 6 months, 1 year, 2 years. I think every position that is made available is treated on its merits, and we follow the process accordingly for every position that does arise. They don't arise often, but who knows what's going to happen over the future. But certainly those that have applied in the past, we keep them on the database just to notify them through just being, good manners really, of letting them know that the positions come up and are you still interested.
Thank you very much, Councillor Tyre. Councillor Taylor. And then Councillor Grave, if you do want to say something, you're welcome to.
Yeah, no, as far as it goes with contacting people that have applied in the past, I think that's okay. I think that's a polite thing to do. But I do think it's of the utmost importance that it is an advertised vacancy. Some councillors may or may not recall when we last had 3 vacancies following the elections in May, that wasn't properly advertised. There was a lot of criticism because it wasn't properly advertised, and a lot of speculation, which actually turned out to be correct, that those councillors had been handpicked by the office. I mean, we've been lucky in some of those circumstances. But I do think that the process was flawed. It wasn't right. It's not democratic, and it's not what we should be what we should be doing as a local authority or as this town council. It's not what we should strive to be seen as. So I think advertising it is part of that transparency, part of that process, and there's no getting away from that.
Thank you. I do believe that we must be beyond reproach in this process. That has to be critical. Councillor Grave, I did give you an opportunity before we go to Councillor Dale. No, he's not. He doesn't want to take it up. So Councillor Dale, jump in. There you go.
I totally agree with Councillor Taylor. I would not want to see co-option as it was done before. And I think the council, we're moving now to be really transparent, and I totally agree with her. It has to be done so it's transparent, and each person, whether they've applied before or not, should have an equal opportunity to apply if that's what they so wish. So yes, Councillor Taylor, I totally agree with you.
Okay, just to give you a flavour of this, if you haven't had a chance to go through the procedure, and I recognise we all live busy lives, the procedure is that we will advertise a vacancy on our website and in social media. The chair of the full council meeting will advertise this at the beginning of this process as well, so we can publicise this. If there are any other means, we're welcome to do them as well. Candidates are to send in an email to the council with the reasons for them wishing to be a councillor and other relevant information as listed within the procedure. And then the councillors will be forwarded these, and at the following full council meeting, there will be an opportunity for these applicants to address councillors and the public and present themselves and be asked questions of councillors. And we will then go through a process of voting for them as listed in the procedure, but it will be completely open and transparent. There isn't going to be a closed session of councillors discussing it, as it were, behind closed doors. It's out in the public domain. We need this to be absolutely beyond reproach. So the proposal then on this is that we adopt the new councillor co-option procedure, and we proceed to advertise the vacancy with the closure date of February the 12th. That's Friday the 12th of February. It gives a month from tomorrow for people to make an application. And that is my proposal. If anyone would like to second that, Councillor Grave. You got there quick. So Councillor Graves seconding it. If we can have a show of hands for approval, please. That is unanimous. Thank you very much. Thank you for that. Right. We are going on to item number 11, a second part of public participation. There is particularly a question that we didn't get time to raise in the first part, and I haven't seen anybody come into the waiting room on the Zoom yet, so it doesn't look like we're going to get a live one. We'll get better at this, no doubt. But the question that was raised that we didn't get to answer the first time was, with the tenders tab not working on the Town Council's website, how does the Town Council decide who should be approached for a quotation? This has been a bane of contention a little bit for my term as a councillor, the tendering process. And I feel that at times the council is exposed because we, as yet, do not have what I would say is a robust, formalised and transparent tendering process. As part of the financial review that we are already undertaking as a Town Council, this has been identified as an area where we need to address urgently. I do have the bare bones of the new tendering process with the help of others, thank you very much, that we are trying to put together to make it more in line with the professional standards expected of the council and making it transparent. And I know that with Lucan looking at the new website, part of the tendering process and the advertising of such tenders in the public domain is a key component of this as well. So that's what we are going to be doing. But to answer the question, yes, we acknowledge our tendering process isn't great. We do not have what I would say is a formalised tendering process where we put out a brief to people in a written format that you would expect. And what we need to do is professionalise that so people are quoting in an appropriate manner. They are well advertised, so people who see the tendering is, or that we need something commissioned, are able to approach the council independent of our asking them to quote for them. So it is more transparent and open for council to consider. So this is something that I'm hoping to have ready for the next full council meeting in February for us to consider, and I will be picking councillors' brains further on this subject as we approach that. But this is part of this continuing improvement of the council to become more transparent, more accountable, and more effective and cost effective in the way that we manage ourselves as a town council. So yes, and something that we can do going forward between now and then is advertise anything that we need quotations for on the mechanisms and the tools and the social media we have between now and then. So that's an answer to that. I don't know whether any other councillors want to make a comment on that particular question that came in. Councillor Tyrant.
I'll just ask, I mean, professionally as well, I've dealt with tenders regularly. There is a national portal that all local authorities and town councils and parish councils use that put tenders on. That is open to everyone. So there's a list of different portals. Gov.uk is one of them that we can use. That is basically the starting point of everything is then sent to anyone that's logged onto that portal. So it's open to everyone to tender. But behind that, as you're rightly saying, we picked this up in the AMP, is we need an agreed scope of works, we need an agreed brief of works, and we need an idea of budget. And when we do put tenders out, we expect any returns to those tenders to address the specifics of the brief and not a one-liner with some brief thing that council assume is going to happen. And probably 99% it never happens and it's never to that budget. And I hope council has now learnt its lesson. But so happy to discuss that, and I'm sure there's others here that have got experience as well.
I will be drawing on any councillor who wishes to be part of this process, because it is something that we once more need to be beyond reproach upon. And it shouldn't be levelled accusations against staff members or councillors for selecting our favourites, etc. And if we can move away from this and become a respectable town council in all our financial dealings and in all our dealings, we will once more gain the confidence of our community and the funds that are entrusted to us. So, thank you. Councillor Busk.
In the past, we have tried to link in with businesses that are in Norfolk or are in a reasonable distance in order to support local enterprise. Now, I can imagine that provided the amount of money is a lucrative amount, we're going to have corporations in one of their subsections are going to be very interested in this, PLCs, and that this is going to squash local involvement. Are we going to go simply by the money, or are we going to look at other factors such as local firms who have all the contacts and so on, as against a corporation?
That's actually a good point, Councillor Busk, and we have to be careful on this. Legally, we can't discriminate against national corporations and choose locally in a sense without any justification. And it's that justification that we need to really nail down, because there are environmental factors with people traveling from all over the country to do jobs at ours. And there are, we need to make sure that when we make a decision, first and foremost, we are offering best value for money for the taxpayer. But also we do need considerations as well for environmental concerns and other such things as we feel as a town council is appropriate. But it needs to be done in a balanced manner that is beyond reproach. The most important thing is we have a robust system that asks the right questions of those supplying quotations of us, so we get appropriate quotations and can be held account to works that we will commission, and that we select them in as fair a manner as possible to get the value for the taxpayer. So, yes, Councillor.
That is including follow-up when things go wrong with a big company. Well, that's minnows they're looking at, but if it's a company that is environmentally not too far away with all the various things associated with that, it is there has to be a look not just on doing the job, but that you're going to have the support that you really only get from a fairly local company.
That is, as I said, it's for us to consider as councillors where we consider the value and the prospect of getting continued support, yes. Councillor Tyra.
Just to try and close this down, I guess. Councillor Busk, I fully hear what you're saying. I think you need to consider, and all councillors need to consider, scale and size of budgets and projects that we as a council actually commission, which aren't that great. Now, you will call for the AMP. Our present consultants are not local at all, and yet I know a lot of local consultants that could have done the job. So there's a question there, why is that not being followed through? Small scale projects probably will be local. If we're talking about 100,000, £250,000 feasibility study, that will be national. It's scale and expertise. There are mechanisms whereby you can promote local businesses, but we do need to be aware, and I'm sure Councillor Leslie, we will discuss this with Breckland, because they procure lots of studies, and we'll do that as part of the AMP and our working collaboration with them, of what we can do and what we can't do. First and foremost, following the New Anglia Local Enterprise Partnerships, they want to promote local businesses for the local economy. So strategically, we will follow that policy. All you can do is encourage local businesses. We can't positively discriminate as such when we're using public money.
Yeah, thank you very much for that. Councillor Westby, and then I'm going to move on if I can.
It's standard tendering practice to undertake a tender appraisal at the end of the process and look at all the various factors, not just the cost. There shouldn't be an obligation just to take the cheapest price. It's got to be the best value price, basically. And that includes any number of factors.
Good. Thank you very much. No, I think we're of the same vein on this and same feeling on this, so that's encouraging. But the principle behind answering this question is, let's get ourselves out of a hole here of any accusations against council, because we aren't doing this in the way that is beyond reproach, isn't transparent. We need to be doing this in a way that anybody would feel comfortable declaring what we're doing as a council and showing it, because it is all above board and correct. So we need to do that. Absolutely. So yes, thank you for that. I don't have any other questions from the public. I'm mindful councillors do get text messages during these meetings with 1 or 2 points, particularly if we've raised something controversial on the night. So if there are any councillors with anything that they feel is appropriate they'd like to raise, either from themselves as a resident or as something that's been messaged, you're welcome to take the last few minutes if you want to. Councillor Crouch, you would like to say something?
I've been contacted today by 3 residents on London Road. They're all moaning about the roadworks, the path being widened and the road being narrowed. Now, there was, so I'm led to believe, an email sent by Highways to say that they would not be narrowing London Road. So why are they narrowing London Road?
Okay, that's a good question. It's one that we can take up with Highways. Thank you, Councillor Crouch. Councillor Taylor, sorry, Councillor Taylor and then Councillor Tyron.
Yeah, from the first public participation, not going too far backwards, don't worry guys, but just going back to obviously the questions that you had, I don't think you really got to the bottom of them the best that you could. Usually the questions submitted are then kept either put on the website or put with the minutes. Will they still be, will that still be happening?
Yeah, sorry, with in the interest of time and to be fair, under some of the political constraints that were happening, the questions will be in full put onto the website, sorry, onto the minutes, so that they are recorded as the submitted questions to the council. Yes. Councillor Tyra.
Thank you.
No, it's okay. I was going to respond to Councillor Crouch, but I won't.
Okay. Thank you very much, and thank you for your participation. At the close of that, wow, we're 15 minutes ahead of time. Well done. We've saved some people some some time of their own this evening. Thank you for your cooperation in the meeting and getting so much done. We will now go into the more private part of this meeting, where we will be discussing sensitive matters for the town council, which are all kind of coming to a head at the moment. More to come on that later. But if I could propose that we exclude the press and public from the meeting under Section 1 of the Public Bodies Act 1960, given the sensitive nature of the business to be discussed. If I could propose that, and if any, Councillor Ellis to second that, and then if we could have a show of hands, please, to approve. I believe that is everyone. I can't see Councillor Crouch in the room, so that motion is carried regardless anyway. We will now close the meeting. If you can just bear with me while I do the technicalities.
I think there's a cat in the room.